Don't know how people can do it. Kill themselves. Like that, I mean. It usually gets the job done, Thorne said. Not always, though. He knew that. The woman in the bag had been lucky in that the outcome for her had presumably been the one intended. There were many whose timing was not quite as good, who simply ended up losing multiple limbs. It's the driver I feel sorry for, Charles said. He's got to live with it, hasn't he? Yeah, true enough. Thorne had glimpsed the train driver in the station office on the way in. Pale, shaven-headed, and cradling a mug of something as he was spoken to by someone from the London Underground Emergency Response Team, nodding as a tattooed arm was laid gently around his shoulder. Thorne knew that the man would be offered trauma counselling, had read somewhere that any driver unlucky enough to get one under 3 times was immediately offered fully paid retirement. It was probably an urban myth, Thorne decided, like the secret station at Buckingham Palace, or the community of cannibalistic savages haunting the tunnels. He had seen some of the passengers as well, gathered in clusters outside the entrance to the station, having been ushered off the train. They too would be offered as much support as was needed. Thorne couldn't help wondering if the woman whose actions had triggered all this activity was ever offered any kind of support, if they would be here if she had. Don't know how you get over something like that, if you're not used to it. Charles stepped to the edge of the platform. On the tracks below him, men and women in high-vis jackets were moving with rather more urgency now that the body had been removed, eager to get the power switched back on, the trains moving again. The DS turned to look at Thorne. You okay, boss? Just a bit warm down here, that's all. Chal nodded, humming something. Without thinking, he began to gently swing the plastic bag, a rivulet of blood running back and forth along the bottom. He checked himself and stopped. The weather outside was as unforgiving as one would expect in the last week of January, and the breath of the passengers outside had plumed in the air as they had stood chatting nervously or smoking. Nevertheless, Thorne felt clammy and uncomfortable, headachy. He unzipped his leather jacket, took a deep breath when Chal looked the other way. Suicide had never agreed with him. His first body had been a hanging, and he had never forgotten it. For good or ill, Thorne remembered most of the bodies he had encountered over the course of his career. He certainly remembered all the murder victims, and, try as he might, he could never forget those who had been responsible for them. It had been a teenage girl, that first one, a slip of a thing dangling from the branch of an oak tree in Victoria Park, a ripped blue dress and legs like sticks, and the muddy heels of her trainers kissing. He remembered himself and a colleague and a rickety stepladder, that skinny body so much heavier than it looked. So, what do you reckon then? Chal asked. In many ways he found murder simpler to process and deal with, because the questions were always the same. Who had done it? Why? And most importantly of all, how was he going to find them? The questions thrown up by a suicide were often the ones that bothered Thorne the most, because 9 times out of 10 he was never going to find out the answers. Sorry? Should we leave this lot to it? The DS nodded up towards the station entrance. Move on? Do we know anything else about her? Chal opened his mouth, closed it again. No, but if you want to find out, it shouldn't take too long. He raised the plastic bag again. We know who she is. Now Thorne could see a few credit cards scattered at the bottom of the bag, an oyster and a driving licence spotted with blood. He leaned closer to look at the picture and thought he could see the hint of a smile on the face of the woman to whom it had belonged. OK, well, might be worth asking a few questions. Really? It was clear from the look on Charles' face that he believed their job at the station was done. The death, though certainly sudden, was not suspicious, so surely there was no more reason to look any further into the life of the woman in the bag than there had been to follow up on the old man in the armchair in Wood Green. He stepped closer. Any reason to think there's an issue? Thorne shook his head. Have I missed something? A few feet away, 2 men clambered up onto the platform, then reached down to help colleagues from the tracks. For the umpteenth time since they'd arrived,